more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen.
Meanwhile, Sir Ed Davies accused Labour of allowing Donald Trump to bully Britain on trade, amid reports the government could ditch a tax on tech giants to avoid US tariffs. The Lib Dem leader says the move would benefit Elon Musk and is now calling for tariffs on Teslas and for Britain to lead a coordinated response with Europe and Canada. The Chancellor says she hasn't ruled out changes to the digital services tax as talks with Washington continue. Rachel Reeves insists firms should pay tax where they operate, but admits a balance must be struck to protect UK exports. In other news, the government's planning more than £2 billion in annual cuts to civil service under a major cost-saving drive. Departments will be told to slash spending on HR, policy and office management by up to 15%. Frontline services are being protected, but unions warn thousands of jobs could go. It comes ahead of Rachel Reeves' spring statement on Wednesday as pressure grows to balance the books without raising taxes. Now, Pope Francis has made his first public appearance in 5 weeks, waving to cheering crowds from a Rome hospital window. Doctors say the 88-year-old suffered 2 very critical episodes that put his life in danger. He was admitted in February and will now need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. And failed asylum seekers could be sent to the Balkans under early-stage government plans to set up overseas returns hubs. The centres would house people whose asylum claims and appeals have been rejected, including those who can't be returned to unsafe countries like Iran or Somalia. Payments would be made to host countries, with current proposals focused on Albania, Serbia and Bosnia. Charities warn, though, that the plans are unworkable and inhumane, while ministers insist they must be affordable, legal and effective. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics and do our very best to make some sense of the senseless. Coming up on the show tonight, a nurse who was punished for misgendering a male paedophile joins us to talk about her ordeal as she faces losing her career. And across the pond, parents are being asked to fill in a form that asks them to declare their newborn baby's sexual orientation and gender identity. And he's back. Andrew Doyle will be making an appearance to talk about Oxford University's plans to make their 800-year-old Latin ceremony non-binary. And, of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering the questions from our wonderful studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are Aideen McQueen and Cressida Wetton. Big round of applause. How are you both? Hello, Aideen, how are you?
I'm very well.
That's... yes, OK. Are you as well?
I'm as well and far more neurotic. I was very peaceful.
Yeah. Very good. Well, there'll be lots of neurosis on tonight, hopefully. Well, look, we're going to start with some questions from our audience. Our first question is from Roger.
Hello. Hey. Is it OK for children to celebrate Easter?
Yes. So is it OK for kids to celebrate Easter? This is a primary school in Hampshire. They've axed their annual Easter celebrations in the name of inclusivity, referring to people who the cherished traditions celebrate. Instead, they're going to be doing Refugee Week in June and various other activities, I guess. Have you heard about this story? It's been...
I hadn't, but I'm horrified. I mean, we're a Christian country as far as I know, aren't we? Still, it's...
Still.
Just, you know, as far as I know.
As far as you know.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of Easter? Chocolate?
Certainly the chocolate.
I mean, I know that there are spiritual connotations as well.
No, I am. And I mean, as I say, we're officially a Christian country, so, you know...
Yeah.
Why can't we, you know...
But, well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that you, Aideen, you've got... This has sort of been done, the headmaster or mistress, she's put out this letter and she's saying she's doing it for diversity. but really, like, stopping something in the name of diversity actually is the total opposite, surely.
It is. I mean, and they seem to celebrate everything else in this school. I mean, I was shocked and very impressed when I worked in an English school how diverse it was, and everybody was included. You know, they nearly celebrated St. Patrick's Day. It was fantastic. So
In the school?
In the school.
With
Not
Guinness?
quite. Not quite.
No.
But so to exclude Easter is sad. Number one, it's not a very intense Easter that they celebrate in schools anyway. It's more like chocolate eggs and a little bit of religion. They don't go deeply into the crucifixion. It's not forced down anyone's throats. You wouldn't have this in any other country. If there was an international school in Dubai, let's say, with a few foreign students, they certainly wouldn't be cancelling Eid.
Yeah, or Ramadan or anything. I mean, and again, and the other word that they use is this, not just diversity, but they're also talking about inclusivity. So it seems like, this is the thing, these ideas, they sort of permeate the culture through academia, I guess, but it always does the opposite of what they're saying they're doing. Because this isn't more diverse, and it's not inclusive to Christians.
No, it's not inclusive to Christians. It feels like it's to accommodate specific groups, perhaps, possibly. I think it's a very good way to make Easter seem exotic again. I mean, when I was a kid, it wasn't that exciting. Now it's turning into some sort of interesting spiritual journey, you know, and Gen Z are returning to Christianity because it's banned now.
Yeah, it's controversial. Let's go and meet up in secret.
Yeah, let's be edgy and have an Easter egg.
Yeah, very nice. OK. Well, as I'm dieting, that would be actually... I'll join in. So we should say that we have actually contacted the school. We're still waiting for a response from them. So our next question is from Chris.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, Chris.
Should you lose your job for thinking that murdering Jews is a bad thing?
Well, it depends if you're Lewis Schaefer or not. So should I say this again? Oh, yeah, should you lose your job for thinking murdering Jews is a bad thing? A sewage worker was sacked after calling Hamas violent and disgusting terrorists on a staff forum, with his employer citing concerns about offending colleagues and taking a one-sided stance. So do you have any feelings about it? Is it one-sided to say that you think that rapists murdering terrorists is bad?
I think it is bad, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I mean, this seems insane to me. Like, you should be able to say that a murdering terrorist is a murdering terrorist and not be offending people.
Well, they're taking it a little bit out of context. In this actual story, he does go on to say more specific things. Now, it was
about
also
the terrorists?
About Israel, Zionists and a lot of things like that. It was inappropriate for him to say all of these things in a work forum completely.
Okay, so that's
but he
their
probably
argument.
should have just gotten a rap on the knuckles or telling off to. Maybe he shouldn't have been fired for it. Now, to be honest, he seems a bit attention-seeking, annoying, just judging by the picture in the paper.
No, I really like him.
Well, yeah, like attract.
Yeah.
So I think it seems like a very extreme reaction. However, he was in the wrong in the first place from bringing his political views into a WhatsApp forum. You know, Thames Water, they've enough BS already, if you'll pardon the pun. I think we didn't need any more.
Well, I don't know if this is Thames Water, but there is an argument. I acknowledge that in terms of whether to talk about any issue, any political issue on this forum. And I'd be interested to see if anybody else has been raising political issues and haven't been punished accordingly. What it seems like the major concern here is the fact that they are actually saying that it was offensive to a relation to a protected characteristic, because they were talking about particularly religious belief, because he condemned Islamists. He didn't say Islam, he didn't say Muslims, he said Islamists.
And he was very careful and covered that. You know, he really made sure it was all sewn up so that there was no ambiguity. And what's interesting is the Free Speech Union have picked this up and said that they think it's a really egregious case and it's absolutely outrageous, and that sort of signals to me that they must have some confidence that this guy's in the right, you know, because it's a protected characteristic.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a protected characteristic to be an Islamist. Which is literally what they're saying, that they dismissed him for gross misconduct. That seems really dangerous to me, that if you can't criticise Islamists, that seems... Anyway, it's a very upsetting article for me, because I would definitely not be able to work in...
No, you can't go work in the sewage works now.
I know, that's...
Yet another job.
Plan B is over, so the show better continue to do well. I will also say that he had 3 complaints for using this language of referring to, like, terrible terrorists or whatever, and I would just say those 3 complaints, that would be slightly a red flag to me. Anyway, OK, we're going to have a little statement here. A Severn Trent Water spokesman said, what is a complex employee relations case? And it's important to be clear that this is not the whole story, not an isolated incident. And whilst it's not appropriate to discuss the details of an individual case, this relates to an ongoing misuse of an apolitical work forum and the expression of views on a range of emotive topics, despite having been previously informed that this was not the appropriate forum to do so. Our next question is from Alex.
Hello. Right, my question is concerning Hungary. Does pride make people gay, do you think?
Well, this is very... it's actually a really horrible story, but it's got a lot of different elements to it. So, yeah, does pride make people gay? This is certainly because in Hungary, they've banned pride events nationwide, with authorities empowered to use facial recognition to identify and find attendees in what Amnesty International calls an unprecedented attack on LGBTQ+ rights. Viktor Orban's government amended the country's law on assembly to make it an offence to hold or attend events that violate Hungary's contentious child protection legislation, which bars any depiction or promotion of homosexuality to minors under the age of 18. So I'd say what this really is a disgusting attack on gay rights. Are you sort of familiar with the difference here? Because it feels like Amnesty International are trying to make this...
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think it is. It's an attack on gay rights.
It is this exact, yeah. So, but I think there are two issues here. One is that Amnesty International have come in and said they're being transphobic, and as far as I can see in any of the legislation, it doesn't mention anything about trans people. So it feels like they're conflating and bringing in the TQ+ stuff.
Right.
Whereas what seems to me a very obvious attack on gay rights.
Yeah, well, Amnesty International have changed over the years, haven't they? They do love a cause. I mean, they always did, but they've become a lot more progressive or woke or whatever you want to call it. It's not just an attack on gay rights, it's an attack on their citizens if they're having facial recognition. I mean, it's not only gay people that go to Pride, is it? That's where I'd start with this and have a panic attack and think, I don't want the government using facial recognition to ban me from events. But as you say, there's more to it than that. It does sound like an attack. I mean, it's so odd to us, isn't it, to think of gay pride being banned. I can't imagine that happening in my country in my lifetime. No,
obviously, I hope not. And but this, are you familiar with this legislation that they've put through? They've also banned same-sex couples from adopting. There's a sort of this slew of homophobic legislation they put through, and including this idea that to sort of raise being gay in front of under 18s is somehow going to sort of make people gay.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's only in the last 10 years ago when I was teaching in Ireland that you were allowed mention homosexuality in schools, and it was a big deal. So we've just gotten rid of this rule in Ireland really recently, and now they're coming back with it in Hungary. And it seems like a violation of human rights. Like, I know that sometimes pride can get a bit out of hand. I myself want a little festival called Prude. Me and Crest are organising it. It's a shame festival, and our kink is kink shaming. But he's gone overboard, and this facial recognition thing is quite scary. Obviously not for me, because I get so many fillers, it doesn't ever work on me anyway. I'll be fine. But, yeah, it seems very regressionary. So on one hand, people admire Orban. They think he's this man full of family values, but he's really quite fascist.
Well, this is it. Well, Pride is very different, as you sort of mentioned, from what it was from when I went when I was younger. Well, no, I went as a kid, you know. But it is very, very different now because of this sort of conflation and this bringing in of other things that aren't necessarily anything to do with being gay at all, but actually arguably fetishes, like straight people with fetishes, sort of invading that Pride event. But that isn't what's going on here. They are very clearly being homophobic. Our final question for the moment is from John.
Yes. Why are white men such bad writers?
Yeah, why are white men such terrible writers, but great dressers? So, this is according to a piece published in Compact magazine. Young white male novelists are increasingly absent from major literary awards and publications, in America especially. Since 2020, not one of the 25 nominations for the Young Lions Prize for debut fiction has been a white man. For the last decade of 70 finalists for the Centre for Fiction's first novel prize, not one has been a straight young white male. And The New Yorker has never published any fiction at all written by a white American male born after 1984. So or Western culture seems to be excluding a whole dearth of talent.
Yes, absolutely. It's collectivism. It's levelling. It's against individual characteristics, basically.
Yeah, I mean, did you read this post?
Yeah.
Ironically, written had to be put online.
You guys have got to up your game, haven't you? Because it can't be that... Look, clearly what's happening is there's been some tampering with the results of these awards, is what I would say.
Are you suggesting that not the best people have been nominated?
I think that's possible. I think, I'm not a fan of DEI. And, of course, the problem is if this carries on much longer, in a minute there really won't be any white male writers because boys are falling behind in education, etc., etc. And also, as I've said a million times, it undermines the awards for everyone if you're not truly letting people have at it equally. I
mean, what do you think about this, Aideen? Writing me tough, hard?
You see, you're losing brain cells as we speak. I am a massive fan of equality of opportunity, right? I mean, obviously the days of of Jane Austen when they would hide their writing under their needlework, or where George Sand had to pretend to be a man. I don't agree with that.
But George isn't.
I know it's a bit of a shock for you now, but equality of outcome I'm not such a fan of, because if you give equality of outcome to women, you're not giving equality of opportunity to men, for instance. So I think it is ridiculous, and like Cressida said, it's kind of patronising, like, oh, give the little girls the prize, aren't they great? Let the best man, woman, person win. That's
or at least just nominate a bloke at some point. All right, coming up on Free Speech Nation, I'll be joined by a nurse who faces losing her career after refusing to refer to a male patient who's a child sex offender as a female. But next, a new report into the misuse and neglect of recording sex reveals a lost decade of corrupt data from institutions like the NHS and the police. See you in 2 minutes.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A government commission report highlights the growing influence of gender ideology in public sectors, including the NHS, police and military. Since 2015, these institutions have shifted from recording biological sex to collecting gender identity data. The Sullivan report cites serious issues, and experts argue this shift undermines data accuracy, patient safety and research integrity, warning that conflating sex and gender identity causes real harm. I am now joined by the Director of Campaigns for Sex Matters, Fiona McEnena. Hello, Fiona, welcome. Thank you very, very much for being here. So let's talk about this. The Sullivan report, it was commissioned by the last government and it was released this week. What are the general findings of it?
Well, it's been a year in the making, and it's found some things that I think we all knew intuitively to start with, but it's brilliantly thorough and well-researched. It's found that in the last 10 years, the collection of sex data in market research, in academic research, and recording that your sex in the health service, in police records, in crime statistics, right across the public sector, that has been replaced by gender identity. So when a police officer asks or makes a note of someone's sex, they're just as likely to say, how do you identify, rather than looking at you and knowing.
So feelings, not facts.
Feelings, not facts. And, you know, the trouble with that is that facts really matter. Feelings matter too, but that's not why we record people's sex in data sets in the health service. You have to know what sex someone is in order to know what treatment to give them, in order to read blood test results, for example, in order to call them for the right screening and the right tests. That's one of the examples in the report, that people are actually not getting the healthcare they need because they themselves have requested that their sex marker be changed.
Well, this is it. So it harms trans people because, one of the examples they give is of someone who's a biological woman but was entered onto the system as male and went in, and it turns out they were pregnant, and because they didn't know that this was a female, they didn't search. I believe there was some ruptured inside. It just would have been dealt with a lot sooner if they'd been correctly sexed on the documents.
Yeah, it's not good for anybody to misrecord your sex when sex matters. And if the point of the Sullivan report is that if government statistics are to be any use, they have to be accurate. And if they're collecting sex data, if they're asking, are you male or female, then they need the right answer. And the fact that someone might feel uncomfortable about that doesn't change the need to have the truth recorded. And in fact, Professor Sullivan says that you might also want, in some cases, to collect data on how people identify, but that's a separate thing. And the fundamental problem here is the two have been mashed together, and so we end up with a whole set of information that we can't rely on.
Well, let's talk about how this has become mashed together, because this feels very much like a deliberate movement of these various institutions, NHS, the police force, our government, armed services, all kind of being given false advice or having activists from within who've kind of pushed this. And it feels very deliberate because people, I guess, they didn't really kind of recognise that there was what's the difference of saying gender or sex? Does it matter? And of course, here we are 10 years later, where we've kind of got this lost decade now, really, where we can't look back and use any of this data. Like, if you don't mind just talking about the police force. Like, suddenly there's a spike in women, female rapists.
Yeah, female sex offenders. Because there are so few female sex offenders that you only need a small number of men to be registered as women, and suddenly it looks like there's been a huge increase in the number of
all these women watching Andrew Tate.
So, yes, what's happened is that people use the word gender as a polite synonym for sex. And then, in the last 10 years, there's been a positive move to replace that with gender identity. And it seems like it is intentional. There are clear forces inside the civil service saying that somehow it's more respectful or it's more appropriate to respect someone's identity. And of course, you can be polite to people. You can, avoid discriminating against them, but that doesn't change their sex. And you may be actually harming them if you misrecord their sex. And it's no good for the rest of us either.
Well, didn't the census have to be taken to court?
Yes, I was part of the group that took the census to court. Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, so this is the same thing. So the idea was, on the census, you could just record what you felt your sex
Yeah,
was?
and in particular, and in fact the Scottish census did do that. Across the rest of the UK, we won the case, and they were forced to give advice that said, in answer to the question, what is your sex, you must state what's actually on your legal documents. But what they wanted to do was say that you could use almost any document, for example, your passport. Well, the fact is that people can get their passport sex changed just by sending a letter. So we already have a situation where people can have one sex on their birth certificate and another sex on their NHS record or their passport. And so for the census to tell people that they could pick either one is clearly crazy.
And the whole point of the census, of course, is to gain accurate data so we can plan ahead and see how many different sexes we have in this country and how they're employed or where they live. And now all that data, certainly the Scottish data, is suspect.
Yeah, so they really messed up because they also tried to ask about transgender and got that all confused as well. And the reason that question went wrong was because they were trying to promote the idea of gender identity. And so a lot of people just didn't really understand what they were talking about, and they answered the question wrong. And I think that's part of what's happened here. In the last 10 years, there have been lots of staff networks, for example, in the civil service who have promoted the idea that it's harmful to someone if you ask them their sex and they're not happy with their sex. Now, that may be, but if you're answering a survey or you're recording someone's sex for medical records, the greater harm is to misrepresent the truth. So really what needs to happen now is the civil service needs to take a good hard look at itself. We think that the Cabinet Secretary, Chris Wormold, needs to address this because many people have tried to tackle this piece by piece. So you know, the previous Home Secretary gave an instruction to the police to stop recording male sex offenders as women on the basis of those men saying that's how they felt. But it's still happening.
What's still happening? Even this week, there was someone taking photos and being reported in the press as she's taken all these photos of, and that's a male.
Yes, and there was a case this week also of Surrey police asking for the public's help to find someone who had gone missing. He had failed to turn up in court twice, but they said this was a woman called Skylar. And you just had to see the picture of Skylar and you knew that was no woman. But do the police want help to find this missing person in order to make them face the courts like they're supposed to do? Or do they want to make Skylar feel good about being a woman? Because it doesn't make any sense for them to call for a woman when it's clearly a man.
So this report's now out. Even though it is out, it's sort of, as you say, it's not been officially recognised really by the government. I believe Wes Streeting he seems very much on top of these issues, has spoken about it positively. But the question is, of course, what the government does do moving forward. Well, what do they need to do? Make this into legislation that it's sex that's recorded within all of these institutions? Is that really the only thing
the guidance in the Sullivan report's really clear, and notionally these are all data sets that are recording sex. So your health records, for example, they're supposed to be sex. So what needs to happen is that each department needs to enforce properly the basic understanding that when you ask someone what sex they are and are they male or female, that's about reality. It's not about feelings. Now, the good news is that Peter Kyle, the Secretary of State for the department that commissioned this report, has circulated the report to all departments. But the big question is, will the civil servants and the LGBT networks in the civil service act on it? Because that seems to be a blocker. And we think that the Equality and Human Rights Commission needs to get involved here. They need to bang heads together at the civil service and say, you're meant to be impartial. You need to stop prioritising this notion of gender identity when the question that really matters to all of us, whether we have a gender identity or not, we all have a sex. So they need to get some common sense back into the civil service.
Yeah, because this is, as you say, it's a comprehensive report, but some of the examples about how this data is kind of misused or the impact that it has that you wouldn't necessarily expect it to have, because it's sort of, if you're trying to work out about how much men and women are paid, of course, if you've got a bunch of males now saying they're women, then suddenly that skews those results. I think the most incredible, disturbing thing that I read was about a mother who went to her GP to change the gender of her baby. And the GP went along with it, and I'm guessing partly through fear of being accused of being a transphobe or something, and no social services were contacted. For me, that's clear child abuse.
Yes, it is.
Or a danger.
I think so. And I think that a paediatrician got involved who tried to interest the Child Protection Services, and they weren't interested. So that's another branch of our public sector that isn't doing its job. People are not doing their job. When trans comes into the picture, people back right off, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, so so the report's now out, and I guess now that it's going to be whether the government actually take matters do you think that if they take that stand that it will make that impact? Because it just feels to me that these institutions, just the level to which they are captured, because we've seen the government give advice before, say to the police, stop doing hate crime, stop recording them, and they still continue to do that. So I just don't know what it's going to take for this to become actual legislation again, become law or become normalised?
Yeah, it's a good question, because that is the problem, is that it is so endemic across our institutions, and they're all just looking to each other and saying, well, they're doing it, we're going to do it too. This report's really clear, and it's clear that it's harmful to everyone. This is not about, what trans people need. This is about what all of us need, including trans people with a trans identity. Wes Streeting maybe has shown the way. He said, well, there must be no more changing of NHS medical records for children who think that they've changed sex. You mustn't do that, because then they end up getting the wrong healthcare in the future. That's a start. The police seem very wedded to this idea that somehow the feelings of a criminal are more important than the truth. That seems pretty fundamental to me. Let's see if the Home Secretary can tackle that, because that's what needs to happen.
OK, well, let's watch this space. Thank you so much for joining us there. Fiona McMillan, Campaigns for Sex Matters, in charge of Campaigns for Sex Matters. Big round of applause, please, Fiona. Coming up on Free Speech Nation, I'll be joined by a nurse who faces losing her career after misgendering a transgender paedophile. But next, a former Home Office contractor has been fired after sharing a post about reform. You don't want to miss it. See you in a sec.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
After a wet and windy couple of weeks for Spain and Portugal, there's some dry weather on offer and plenty of sunshine across the eastern Mediterranean too. Still some showers affecting the far north of Spain and Portugal, and some heavy downpours across parts of Italy and Croatia over the next couple of days. But across the eastern parts of Mediterranean, parts of Turkey and Cyprus, plenty of sunshine on offer. The best of the sunshine through the rest of the week, though, definitely across the Canary Islands, and highs here likely to reach around 21 or 22.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, this is Chris.
This is
Biggins.
the Botticelli's Venus.
Well,
right?
this gets me incensed. This is unbelievable.
Right.
Woke union chiefs.
No, but there we are. There's the famous
have
painting.
said that this must be taken down.
The birth of Venus.
This must not be watched. You mustn't look at this.
And there's a trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
As well, right?
Yes.
And I don't know who's put the trigger warning on this. Is it the museum where it's held, or
some union chiefs?
Oh, right.
Woke union chiefs. I mean, this is
so
just...
what is the offence now with that? What?
You can see her belly button.
Oh.
And a little bit of her titties. I mean, it's a beautiful painting.
Yeah, the trigger warning is that this painting may involve nudity. Well, it is a Botticelli, it is Venus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to involve nudity.
And there are lots of wonderful paintings that involve nudity. You can't suddenly say now, in 25, you can't look at these.
You'd have to shut down every art gallery in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it would be ridiculous.
We are living in 1984 now, aren't we? I mean, not literally the year, but the whole censorship thing. It's like groupthink, you must do this, you must do that. You can't have independent thought.
Yeah.
You can't look at works of art in case you start thinking the wrong way.
It's just like newsflash, classical paintings will probably have nudity in them.
Yes.
You're right. Angling, and
And compared to what you can see on Instagram.
Well, yes.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A Home Office contractor has been sacked for sharing a post made by Reform UK MP Richard Tice in a WhatsApp group chat. Gary Costin was fired after complaint about the message, which raised concerns about a Muslim lobbying group. He was subsequently dismissed by the government contractor, Mitty, despite the company accepting that he had not intended to cause any offence. I am now joined by Gary Costin. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Big round of applause, please. This man has been through the ringer. I'm sorry what's happened to you. I read about your story this week. If you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience what happened.
Basically, last April, I forwarded a post on a private WhatsApp group with 12 of my other colleagues. It was a post that had been on X, Twitter, shared by Richard Tice at the time. It was done just for information, nothing more, and that was it. I came into work, I was asked the question, did I post this on the group? My integrity, my honesty, yes, I did, I couldn't lie. I then got suspended there and then. For 7 months, I was under investigation. I had a disciplinary hearing planned halfway through around June, and for some reason they stopped the hearing, didn't interview me, but then decided that the other people on the group should be interviewed. They were all interviewed. Come September, it came out I needed a disciplinary. Had the disciplinary, kept me hanging till November the 7th, and then they sacked me.
So, my understanding is, so this is a WhatsApp group. You're working as a Home Office contractor. There's a WhatsApp group for people, your colleagues. This post, it doesn't seem... You didn't comment on it, it should be said. You just literally reposted it, said, check this out, because it was about
something that was in the paper at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just saying there was a Muslim group within the Home Office, part of their... which actually in itself is no big deal in terms of, I believe, part of what they're wanting to do is to promote an understanding of Islam. That's all good. Richard Tice, it seems like he sort of expressed concern about how this might have an impact in terms of pushing Muslim issues within the Home Office. That's a legitimate response. I could say that if there was a Jewish group within that group, within the Home Office, you could sort of say, well, what issues are being raised here? That doesn't seem like some great crime. Certainly not reason to lose your job. What's also incredible to me is that it seemed like sharing this post, and this is what I'm just going to quote Mitty saying this. They said it was perceived as offensive and racist by others. So this is the insane thing: is they're not saying what you did was racist or offensive. They're saying that it could be perceived that way by other people? And by the way, it seems like the person who complained wasn't Muslim themselves, right?
No idea. All I know is there was a whistleblower. No one's come forward. No one said that. I don't even know if he was offended. I haven't had a chance to actually stand there in front of him and say, tell me why, and then I'll give you my reasons. It was all perception. But like it says in the paper, perception. At the moment, I feel I'm being discriminated against. I feel I'm being bullied.
Well, of course.
That's why what might he have done to me. That's my perception.
And you worked for them for 15 years?
I started working initially for G4S back in 2009. I've travelled to just about over 150 countries over that period, taking foreign national prisoners home. There's a post from 2018 on YouTube which actually shows me as the whole back of the aircraft goes a little bit doolally.
Because you were escorting a prisoner back, but you weren't allowed to reveal why this person was being
It's personal information I'm never allowed to reveal. So I just had to stand there and take the abuse, and then the job was aborted. Thank God we managed to get rid of him in 2024, only 5 years later, but, well, nearly 6 years later. But he was a gang rapist, but that was the sort of people I dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing that clip, and like you say, your professionalism there, you weren't allowed to reveal that information. You could have just said, look, guys, everybody, you're defending's a rapist here, but you weren't allowed to do it, and you could have done that, and that would have saved you a lot of abuse that you were getting, and you didn't, because that's your job. So, since losing your job, and I believe that this has actually prevented you from actually obtaining further work, this incident.
I've applied for 5 or 6 jobs which I would have liked to have gone for. The final sort of straw, where I basically had a little bit of a wobble, was when I applied to Gatwick Security. Got through all the tests, was meant to go for assessment. They asked me why I'd been sacked, and I told them a few weeks later, no thank you. So I just had a wobble, as I say, and I wrote to Richard Tice. I didn't expect anything from it, but he got back to me the next day, and here we are.
Yeah, well, I think, obviously, we can't change what happened to you, but the idea that people are losing their jobs for just, not even commenting, just sharing a factual post, and, of course, then the idea that it could be perceived as being offensive. This is such a slippery slope. I'm so sorry it happened to you, but at least we can be aware of the dangers moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Costin. A spokesman for MITI said, we don't comment on individual cases, but there is zero tolerance for racism and discrimination of any type in our business. Coming up on Free Speech Nation, I'll be joined by a nurse who faces losing her career after refusing to refer to a male child sex offender patient as a woman. But next, should Oxford make its 800-year-old degree ceremony gender neutral? Let's ask Andrew Doyle. See you in 2 minutes.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, most of us will see some rain at times, but equally some sunshine too. Low pressure is pulling away to the southeast of the UK at the moment. That's taking most of today's showers away to the southeast, allowing a little ridge of high pressure to build in from the northwest, so things should quieten down for a time at least over the next 24 hours or so. Back to tonight though, we've still got some showers for a time this evening across the southeast corner of the UK. Some of those could be heavy, even thundery for a while as well. But notice they tend to fade away as we go into the early hours of Monday. A lot of low cloud left behind, so quite murky with some hill fog in places. Whereas towards the northwest of the UK, under clearer skies, we'll see a fairly widespread frost, certainly in rural spots, with temperatures here down to -3 or -4 Celsius. As for Monday itself, then, when we start the day with some rain across Shetland there, but elsewhere in the north, plenty of fine weather to start Monday, lots of sunshine around, but as I say, it will be quite a cold start, some frost to clear first thing. Plenty of sunshine for Northern Ireland, but once again, a fairly widespread frost to start the day. Brighter skies across parts of northwest England and western parts of Wales with some high cloud moving in here. Whereas towards the southeast, we're under that thick band of cloud there, quite a murky start with some fog to clear. And notice that across the south, though, temperatures holding well above freezing. So as we go through the rest of the day, the low cloud in the south and southeast will gradually lift and break to allow some sunshine to come through. And then for much of the UK, Monday does look quite promising. Plenty of sunshine around. But notice towards the northwest that cloud and rain across the far north there, pushing its way southeastwards across northern and western Scotland into western parts of Northern Ireland too. Temperatures generally around average, if not just above, in the low, locally mid-teens Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, it's the turn of the south of the UK to see some outbreaks of rain, whereas towards the north of the UK, brighter skies, just 1 or 2 showers, and all the while those temperatures still holding up fairly well in the range low to mid-teens. We'll see further bands of rain moving their way southeastwards across the UK during the rest of the week, weakening all the while though, and all the time those temperatures stay around or just above average.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Oxford University is set to update its 800-year-old Latin degree ceremony to be gender neutral. The change will replace gendered terms like magistri and doctores with neutral alternatives. This starts in October. A vote on the proposal will take place on April 29th, marking a step towards greater inclusivity for non-binary students. I'm now joined by comedian, writer and the creator of the greatest show on telly, Andrew Doyle. There he is.
Hi, Josh. I love hearing you speak in Latin. You should do it more often.
How are you, Andrew?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Look at you. You're tanned. You've changed. You've got an American accent.
Yeah, I wouldn't say tanned quite yet. I'm a little too pallid for that. But fingers crossed. I'm going to try and dip out into the sun a bit more.
So, did you hear about this story this week over in America at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I keep abreast of the UK news very much so, and the story about Oxford University didn't surprise me, but it is still a bit dispiriting, isn't it? Not that anyone would have noticed. I mean, let's face it, I've been through that ceremony. You know, when the Vice-Chancellor is speaking in Latin, it's not as though people are really understanding what is being said. But the question is, so in that sense, it's kind of harmless. But the question is, why are they modifying a ceremony that's been going on for 8 centuries on the basis of a handful of people who have this esoteric belief system that is untethered to reality? You know, why don't we all get to have our belief systems represented within that ceremony? It's just a bit of a nonsense, to be honest. And it's really worth reminding, like I say, not really that important, but it does point to a broader malaise, the idea that we should all truckle to the bidding of ideologues. It's a bit like when people say you should announce your pronouns in a meeting or in an email. You might say, well, that's just harmless, you know, it's just a couple of words here and there. But what it does is it lays the groundwork for this very damaging, regressive ideology that, as we have seen, has resulted in the erosion of women's rights, the erosion of gay rights, all sorts of problems in society, not least the upending of the difference between truth and fiction. So in that regard, it is a bad sign, isn't it, that Oxford is still doing this kind of thing? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I'm going to take umbrage is with you sort of humble bragging that you have a doctorate there at the very top of the of your thing. You're like, hey, oh, yeah, you know, it happened to me, and when I heard it, it was doctori. But yeah, but I didn't say doctorate, did I? You just added that extra detail.
Yeah, fine. But
thanks for bringing it up. It's good to know that people know that I'm qualified in poetry, as though that's helpful in any way.
Well, what though is because no, but as you say, it's a creeping thing because it's not just going to be this 800-year-old ceremony. It's also going to be how they refer really any time that Latin comes up when they're talking to the masters or the professors or anything really. Now it's going to be this gender-neutral language.
Yeah, but that won't last very long. I mean, maybe it'll last for another 5 years, 10 years. I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it, that as woke is on the wane and is declining very rapidly in the US, in the UK and Europe more broadly, people are desperately trying to cling on to this, and particularly the areas of privilege and wealth. I mean, like Oxford, because it's no coincidence, is it, that the most woke universities, the ones that have really charged down this regressive path, they're all the most affluent universities. They're all the ones with the poshest kids, because the idea of being non-binary, the idea of gender identity, is a very middle-class pursuit. It's predominantly middle-class people that claim that as an identity. And look, the thing about it is it is terribly regressive, right? I mean, the idea of being non-binary is predicated on this notion that you don't feel that you fit into categories of male or female, maleness or femaleness, masculinity and femininity. What you're doing there is you're basically saying that there is one way to be a man and one way to be a woman, and that you're neither of those things. You don't fit into those old-fashioned stereotypes. In that regard, claiming to be non-binary is to reinforce those old-fashioned stereotypes. You know, why can't men just behave in all sorts of ways and women behave in all sorts of ways? No, it must be that you're neither male nor female, but something in between. I think people forget that the idea of non-binary is actually a really conservative, old-fashioned, it was based on a conservative, old-fashioned view of gender stereotypes.
Of course, I mean, look, you had David Bowie, Annie Lennox. They never claimed that they were partly of the opposite sex. But do you think...
No, they never stopped being men or women, did they? There is no third sex. There is no third gamete. Non-binary people are either male or female. They just assume an identity. It's the equivalent of being a punk or being a goth or being a teddy boy. It's fine. You can call yourself that. Doesn't matter. But once you start saying to the rest of society, you have to reinforce my personal belief system by the language you use, then you've gone from just personal identity into authoritarianism.
Well, when you have to change an 800-year-old ceremony, I think that's possibly why non-binary of all these identities, it winds me up. In terms of, like, trans is a identifiable phenomenon, it's a definable phenomenon. Here is somebody who believes they are the opposite sex. Non-binary is just, there is no real clear definition of it. And that's why I think legally it's not protected, or it's not defined, because it can't be defined really in this country. But at the same time, non-binary does have some, there's this idea that it might be included under the Equality Act, under gender reassignment.
Well, then include goths. Include punks, if you're going to go down that road, then we've got to include everyone's self-perception. I mean, the thing is, it's become a very fashionable thing. You know, people like Sam Smith or Demi Lovato or people like that embracing non-binary identity. But it's not a thing in material reality. It's just about the way that you perceive yourself. I mean, now that the Trump administration has said you can't have an X on your passport in the sex category, and you've had a lot of people who claim to be non-binary getting very angry about that and saying that they're being threatened. But of course, an official document needs to record biological sex. It doesn't need to record your personal metaphysical belief system. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No. When you say it's... I guess it did come in because it became fashionable. But this week, someone from Coronation Street announced that they were non-binary. So there is the argument that it could well be on the way out. Like, if it had been EastEnders, then maybe it would still continue. But Coronation Street...
Yeah, I think it was Shobna Gulati, who's I think she's in her early 50s. She looks great, by the way, but she's a woman. She is a woman, and she calls herself non-binary, and it was just met with a kind of shrug. Like, no, at some point, maybe about 3 years ago, then you get a lot of the attention you wanted, and a lot of people would say it's really radical and different. And now, doesn't it feel just tired? It kind of already feels a bit outmoded and a bit boring.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Doyle, I'm just going to read the R&R. An Oxford University spokesman said the proposed changes before congregation created a single text for each ceremony. See you guys in a couple of minutes, OK?
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, most of us will see some rain at times, but equally some sunshine too. Low pressure is pulling away to the southeast of the UK at the moment. That's taking most of today's showers away to the southeast, allowing a little ridge of high pressure to build in from the northwest, so things should quieten down for a time at least over the next 24 hours or so. Back to tonight though, we've still got some showers for a time this evening across the southeast corner of the UK. Some of those could be heavy, even thundery for a while as well. But notice they tend to fade away as we go into the early hours of Monday. A lot of low cloud left behind, so quite murky with some hill fog in places. Whereas towards the northwest of the UK, under clearer skies, we'll see a fairly widespread frost, certainly in rural spots, with temperatures here down to -3 or -4 Celsius. As for Monday itself then, when we start the day with some rain across the Shetland there, but elsewhere in the north, plenty of fine weather to start Monday, lots of sunshine around, but as I say, it will be quite a cold start, some frost to clear first thing. Plenty of sunshine for Northern Ireland, but once again, a fairly widespread frost to start the day. Brighter skies across parts of northwest England and western parts of Wales with some high cloud moving in here. Whereas towards the southeast, we're under that thick band of cloud there, quite a murky start with some fog to clear. And notice that across the south though, temperatures holding well above freezing. So as we go through the rest of the day, the low cloud in the south and southeast will gradually lift and break to allow some sunshine to come through. And then for much of the UK, Monday does look quite promising, plenty of sunshine around. But notice towards the northwest that cloud and rain across the far north there, pushing its way southeastwards across northern and western Scotland into western parts of Northern Ireland too. Temperatures generally around average, if not just above, in the low, locally mid-teens Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, it's the turn of the south of the UK to see some outbreaks of rain, whereas towards the north of the UK, brighter skies, just 1 or 2 showers, and all the while those temperatures still holding up fairly well in the range low to mid-teens. We'll see further bands of rain moving their way southeastwards across the UK during the rest of the week, weakening all the while though, and all the time those temperatures stay around or just above average.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
There is plenty more to come on Free Speech Nation. Cancellations come to the world of DJs and dance culture. US parents are being asked to declare their newborn baby's sexual orientation and gender identity. And a nurse who was punished for misgendering a male paedophile joins us to talk about her ordeal as she faces losing her career. But first, let's get the latest headlines from Sophia Wensler.
Good evening. Your headlines at 8 o'clock. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called a snap election for the 28th of April. Mr Carney has only been the Prime Minister for a matter of days after the former Bank of England governor took over from Justin Trudeau. Mr Carney addressed ongoing tensions with the US after Donald Trump's trade war and plans to make Canada the 51st state.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen.
Meanwhile, Sir Ed Davies accused Labour of allowing Donald Trump to bully Britain on trade amid reports the government could ditch a tax on tech giants to avoid US tariffs. The Lib Dem leader says the move would benefit Elon Musk and is now calling for tariffs on Teslas and for Britain to lead a coordinated response with Europe and Canada. The Chancellor says she hasn't ruled out changes to the digital services tax as talks with Washington continue. Rachel Reeves insists firms should pay tax where they operate, but admits a balance should be struck to protect UK exports. Protests have erupted for a fifth night in Istanbul after the city's mayor was arrested and stripped of his duties in a government crackdown. There's been speculation that Ekrem İmamoğlu's arrest could be an attempt by Turkey's President Erdogan to block him from power. The arrest came as voters cast their ballots in a primary to name Mr İmamoğlu the opposition CHP party's candidate for the 2028 presidential race. He would have run against Mr Erdogan, and polls suggest he could have beaten the incumbent in national elections. In other news, the government's planning more than £2 billion in annual cuts to the civil service under a major cost-saving drive. Departments will be told to slash spending on HR, policy and office management by up to 15%. Frontline services are being protected, but unions warn thousands of jobs could go. It comes ahead of Rachel Reeves' spring statement on Wednesday as pressure grows to balance the books without raising taxes. And Pope Francis has made his first public appearance in 5 weeks, waving to cheering crowds from a Rome hospital window. Doctors say the 88-year-old suffered 2 very critical episodes that put his life in danger. He was admitted in February and will now need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. I'm joined by my fellow comedians, A.D. McQueen and Cresta Wetton. Let's give them a round of applause. Come on. Let's give them a round of applause. We love it. OK, we've got some more questions from our audience. Our first question is from Anton.
Who is funding hate?
Who is funding hate? Far-left group Stop Funding Hate has been accused of amplifying anti-Semitic messages on its social media, despite claiming to oppose all forms of discrimination. The charity, which has received taxpayer funding, has failed to act on hate posts directed at Jewish people while targeting Marks & Spencer for its advertising on GB News. So this Stop Funding Hate...
Sounds like the taxpayers funding hate from what you've just said.
Yeah, well, it should be said this has come through... taxpayers have given money to a charity that then have given money to Stop Funding Hate. I think it's about £100,000.
Right.
this is what we've seen from the far left, a hypocrisy here of supposedly being very anti-racist, yet being a little bit lackadaisical when it comes to Jules.
It's almost like they haven't even read Jordan Peterson, isn't it? Clean up your own room first. Stop pointing at everyone else.
I mean, that is their job. That's the thing, though. Are you familiar with this group? This is what they do. They messaging every day. Don't go into each company. What are you doing? They're saying crazy, hateful things on it. But then, of course, if on their own social media are people who've promoted hate, maybe they should start looking a little bit closer to home?
Yeah, stop funding hate of funding hate. It's another group that I've just started. But I think they have said some very anti-Semitic things, and I think that's awful. I mean, it's quite petty. I mean, we're all funding hate, really, by buying stuff that's produced in sweatshops, and I think they're missing the point. You know, I think it's a good idea to have somebody that's watching out for this, but, I mean, so many companies are corrupt on a level that's horrific, that this kind of name-calling everything is just a small drop in the ocean of how much hate there's out there. So I think they're misguided.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is, they themselves have not said anything hateful, but it's the people who follow them, also people on the far left, who've sort of said things about Marks and Spencer's, which was founded by a Jewish person, accusing them of genocide, of really terrible things.
It's a classic example of why we need free speech. We don't want somebody who says they're a self-appointed authority deciding what the British public can and can't see.
Well, defining what they think hate is.
Well, exactly. Just, who do you think you are? Just stop funding hate.
Well, the thing is, they've actually had, arguably, a big impact. Like, the campaigns that they started against this channel before the channel had even launched meant that advertisers were intimidated, some of them...
Like a horrible little grass going, miss, you know what they did? And causing all this trouble. I was nearly going to say the H word then. I H them. I'm very frustrated with them.
I guess and again, it's as it's been through this whole process of, yes, of course, free speech, but if you're going to... It's the hypocrisy. Yeah. That is just the most maddening thing, is where are they going after? Are they going after The Guardian for some of the things that they have published that have been very suspect? Are they going even after the BBC, which have put out stuff that is arguably anti-Semitic
and what's interesting is they're still saying there's no bias. They're not saying we've got some leanings, but we're trying to be balanced. They're just saying we're not biased, and it doesn't seem to be the case.
No. Right, well, Richard Wilson, director of Stop Funding Hate, said Stop Funding Hate has a proud record of opposing all forms of hate, including anti-Semitism. Stop Funding Hate would never knowingly amplify a social media account that was being used to spread hateful or otherwise problematic content. We will always take action to remove problematic comments posted on our Facebook page when we become aware of them. Our next question is from John.
Oh. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Hi, Josh. How many...
John, would you stand up, mate?
Sorry. How many sexes does James Bond's Q think there are?
How many sexes do James Bond's Q think there are? And we should... I should point that the reason why John's being a little bit... It was his birthday yesterday. So, thank you very much. 79 years old? 79 years old? 79 years old, and he's incredibly hungover. So getting him to stand up was a real feat there. But happy birthday, mate, and thank you so much for joining us today. So, yes, this is how many sexes does James Bond's Q think they are? Because Peter Wilkins, a scientist at Porton Down, has won a legal battle after being harassed and discriminated against for his gender-critical views, including his support for immutable sex. An employment tribunal found a hostile animus, that's happened to me a few times after a curry, towards his beliefs at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, leading to his resignation and the dismissive claims that his views were a security risk. So, it should be explained, this is what kind of like the reason why the question alludes to Q from James Bond, is because this is where they get the secret weapons, and this is where it all comes from.
It's a place of science, man. Yeah. An invention.
And so, believing that there are only two sexes, that's gonna then, how is that gonna impact upon the people who are making these defence weapons?
Well, it's just in the spirit of science, isn't it? He's someone that likes accuracy, and regardless of that, he's allowed to think there are only two sexes. It's the law.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they were creating some kind of pheromone that was attractive to women, and then someone's like, well, what about a non-binary pheromone?
What what do you think is going on? They're just going to do all these honey traps on Russians and stuff and have these pheromones. Yeah, I think it's good that he is allowed to have his beliefs and the immutable sex is protected now, or the belief in it. I mean, look at me. I was born in Ireland. I'm Irish. I can work on GB News. I can start talking like that. I can even get British citizenship. But are you all fooled? No. But so, I mean, I'll always be Irish. So, I mean, these things to me are fundamental, and I can't believe that it even came up that he was questioned about it.
When it comes to our defence, just to go on about it, because someone from the Free Speech Union who represented him, they said we're meant to be fighting world wars, not culture wars, which I think brilliantly... Yeah, well done, Free Speech Union. Good soundbite. But 100% correct.
Absolutely, and it amazes me that we keep having a version of this story week in, week out. This is still happening. I feel like when are these organisations going to catch up? I guess they've all got a few activists in them who aren't watching Free Speech Nation.
Indeed. Well, there we go. Our next question is from Margarita. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Marguerite. Hi.
Marguerite, hello.
So, is teaching British identity racist? What do you think?
Well, is teaching British identity racist? This is the National Education Union. They're set to claim that England's curriculum promotes a racist notion of British identity and push for an anti-racism curriculum. So, yeah, do you think it's racist to promote British identity?
I think, well, I'm in university now, but I'm thinking back to when I was in, sort of year 7 to year 9 doing, history lessons. I think maybe with this argument, some of the lessons weren't giving a holistic view, but then you could argue from countries on the other side of the world, when they're doing their history lessons, aren't they doing it from their point of view as well? So...
Yeah. So this is the story. Yeah, at NEU, they've got their conference coming up. They've tabled some motions that I personally find deeply offensive, or certainly worrying, that these are teachers who are promoting this stuff, that their ideology somehow is going to trump historical fact.
Confusing that they're talking about having Black History Month be featured on the curriculum. Excuse my ignorance, I thought we did learn about that stuff. Certainly when I was little, we learned about the slave trade at school, and that was quite a long time ago. So I don't exactly know what it is that they want that's different. We've just heard about Refugee Week being taught this week. That's quite outward-looking, isn't it? That's looking at the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know exactly what they want.
This is the thing, is that, as you say, I mean, I do all my children's homework, because they're a bit thick. And I can absolutely tell you there is a lot of focus on Black history, and that's great. But the interesting thing is, someone pointed out that actually there's only the only curriculum, historical history stuff that's in the curriculum that you have to teach is stuff about, I believe, South Asian culture and South American culture. So you could argue that that is prejudice.
Yeah, World War II is now an option, which is interesting. Now, again, when I taught, we did a lot of Black History Month. The slave trade was really covered, and I was impressed by how much it was covered in primary school anyway. I wasn't up to the big boys in secondary, let's just put it that way. Now, I mean, I think there's a bit of overcorrection here. You were no angels, the English now. You didn't treat the paddies very well at certain parts of history and other parts of the world.
We're not allowed to say that word.
The P word.
No,
I can say it.
No, I was saying British.
I can say the P word.
I was just saying British. It was British people who do it.
Yeah. So I think, but... I mean, I was very surprised how little pride there was in being British in British schools, and how it's almost, people are frightened to be British and you're frightened of St. George's Day. I mean, imagine if you celebrated St. George's Day like we celebrate Patrick's Day. You wouldn't work for a month. The country would close down. Yeah. So it's getting that balance right. And I think a lot of the time, in order to avoid controversy, I noticed the curriculum, they would just focus on things that are very neutral, like the Vikings are covered at loads. You do loads about the Lady and the Lamp. Egyptians are covered to death. So history is a little bit blandified in order to avoid it.
It's a non-binary person on the lamp.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Our final question is from Navina.
Can a baby choose their sex?
Can a baby choose their sex? You look fabulous, by the way, Navina. Thank you. Hospitals in New Jersey are facing backlash for distributing a form asking parents about their newborn's gender identity and sexual orientation, despite lawmakers arguing it serves no medical purpose. So, Navina, are you familiar with the story? Did you see it covered this week?
I heard little bits
Would you
when I
mind just
got
standing
here.
up? Sorry.
I heard little bits when I got here.
Yes,
it's... what do you think about this? Do you think babies can sort of go...
I can't even imagine why anybody would ask that question. I mean, how could you even imagine that a baby could choose anything?
Well, no, of course. Well, the reason, I guess, why we can imagine this question being asked is because of an ideology overtaking institutions.
Yes, I mean, I don't think they designed the form for babies. I think this is the standard form for patients. But I would argue that nobody necessarily needs this form in a medical setting, because if you're being treated, I want the doctor to know what's inside.
What's inside?
Me.
Oh, okay.
And what I started
Let's stop talking
with...
about things that are inside you, Chris.
Josh. But you see what my point is? The ideology is so widespread in this institution that they haven't changed. I mean, it's... Why have they got this form?
I don't know. I didn't hear a word you just said. Do you want to talk about something different?
I mean, it seems ridiculous, doesn't it? It's almost like it's a clerical error when I read it first. It's like when my cat got this medication, and on the back of the medication it says, avoid driving heavy machinery. It's a cat, you know? It's the same thing.
Haven't you seen Garfield too?
Are you watching your kids' films now as well as doing their homework?
Yeah. OK, next on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be interviewing the NHS nurse who, after being subjected to a racist attack by a male trans patient who's a child sex offender, faces losing her career because she refused to call him a woman. You do not want to miss this. See you in 2 minutes.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
See, you, Anne, are much more sophisticated than what I am.
Oh, yeah?
So you do like these sort of Fashion Week things? Are you into all that?
What, you mean like London Fashion Week?
Yeah. Do you like that sort of thing?
I used to. I find it all a bit of a bore now. But, I mean, I used to love going along to London Fashion Week. Yeah, because actually sitting there and watching them all on the catwalk, I mean, it is quite exciting.
You see, it's just I've seen this in the papers this morning.
Oh.
And it's Paris Fashion Week at the moment. And this designer... Hodakova, who's Swedish.
Oh,
apparently.
know her well.
So there's her latest design.
It's a lady wearing a cello.
Yes, she's wearing a cello, and there's someone else wearing a violin
as a hat.
fascinator.
Now, the violin...
Oh, there you go.
Well, actually, the violin is ridiculous because it's so big.
But the cello... It's
but
just...
why is a lady wearing a cello? I mean, it looks stupid.
It's a second-hand cello.
Well,
so she hasn't designed... What has she designed? Apart from she put some Legos in it.
Can't be very comfortable. I mean, how do you sit down in a cello?
And there's no armholes.
No. Honest,
so you can't scratch your nose.
That's how you get a headline, isn't it? But it's not fashion.
But apparently they're all the models are wearing smudged eyeliner, which looks like someone's done their eyeliner with a Sharpie. And that's
very Bieber,
that's inspired by punk rock.
I used to go to the clothes show in Birmingham. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the clothes show.
Tim Vincent.
Yes.
Presented it.
Yeah, it was a very big deal, but I think those days are a bit over. It's a bit like Meghan's programme on Netflix. Those days are over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very dated to be pretending to be the perfect hostess and you just spend hours arranging fruit on a plate. It's just not done nowadays. We're all a bit more practical.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. If you saw the front pages of today's newspapers, you will have seen this shocking story on the Mail on Sunday. The headline read, "Nurse branded danger to public for calling racist transgender paedophile Mr." The story is about Jennifer Mele, who works at St Helier Hospital in Surrey and was called the N-word 3 times by a patient from a high-security men's prison. She was investigated and disciplined by the hospital for accidentally addressing the patient, who was born a man but identifies as a woman, as Mr. She's now filing a legal claim supported by Christian Legal Centre against the hospital trust, and she joins me now. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. We have covered many people's stories over the last nearly 4 years on this show. This story, I think, is the craziest of all. Would you mind just telling us what happened?
It was quite shocking on that day, being on a night shift. Like any other usual night shift, you know, you would have handovers, you know, and take over from the day staff, everybody willing to, you know, excited to go home, and now taking over. And in the beginning, we had a very good sort of, you know, transition, and saying, you know, going around the wards and meeting the patient, saying hello, introducing ourselves, like the new staff we are here now to take over. And we quite had a calm first 2 couple of hours. And it just came daunting to me when my colleague ran towards me in distress. She was so shaken, and she said, "Jennifer, I need help. There's a patient that needs, you know, he just says he wants to self-discharge, very outrageous, causing mayhem, and very disruptive to the rest of the patient, being trauma and orthopedic ward."
And there wasn't a doctor, so it was your job to go and sort this.
Yes, it has a nurse in charge.
Yeah.
So I had to support her. So my question for her was like, did you bleep the doctor? Because that would be the next step if someone wanted to self-discharge. And she said yes, and I said, okay, I'll come and help you. You know, she was a new nurse in the ward, and being a junior nurse, she needed a lot of support. So in that case, I said, when you phone the doctor, I'll take over and I just support you and let, if he wants to self-discharge, if there's anything at all we can do before letting him go. I was trying actually to be nice. Usually, you know, we would just let them go. But in this case, I was trying to help so we can get some medication and stuff if he wanted anything for pain. And so luckily when the doctor phoned back, and I just spoke to the doctor and I said, Mr. X would like to self-discharge. What can we do? Is there anything we can do? Would you like to prescribe anything we can give him? And they overheard me, obviously. I wasn't too far from the nursing station, and began yelling and rowing. I'm a miss, don't call me this.
Sorry, I just want to make one point.
Yes.
You have to say
yes.
This is a male because I understand it involved a catheter.
Yes.
So it would have been confusing medically
yes.
to try and explain.
Because this was a urology doctor.
Yes.
Yes, and I had to identify, yes, and that's what I did. So in this case, he became so outrageous and began to call me the N-word multiple times. And despite me trying to calm the situation, I said, I'm trying to help you. Usually, we would just call security for you and send you, you know, they would come and just walk you out.
And he lunged for you, didn't he?
And yes,
right?
Yes, he had 2 prison guards. And with chains and buffed on his legs as well, and he was lashing, actually got out of bed, lashing at me, and I was shaking. I had to just take a few steps back. Racially abused, and calling me the N-word multiple times, and I said, you got to calm down. And at that point, I was shaking. I had to just walk away and leave the environment.
You explained to him that
yes.
he was upset because you weren't addressing him as
Yes.
female, and you explained to him, look, I'm happy to call you by the preferred name that you want, but this goes against my belief.
Christian faith. And I said, I'm happy to call you by your preferred name, feminine name that, we had on the board. I said, I'm happy to call you that, but I cannot refer to you as
that's your right. You have gender critical beliefs. We have the right to have those beliefs.
Yes, and Christian faith. And I'm a very strong believer, and I'm a street preacher as well. So I cannot go against...
Unfortunately, people very sympathetic towards you up to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really thank God for this because of the faith that I have. It's kept me strong throughout the first couple of months from May last year. And I thank Jesus for just giving me the courageous spirit that standing on the Word of God, I had to say, because according to the Word of God, Genesis 1:27, it said, God created them male and female. And I just stood by it. I said, well, I'm a Christian person, a woman.
You're allowed to say woman here.
Yes, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian girl. I'm a Christian girl, and I love the Lord. And I know, beyond male and female is an abomination to the Lord, and I can't do that.
Well, it's not bad. I mean, Darwin would argue that there's male and female. Believers in Darwin will say the same thing. But the point is, your shift finished.
Yes.
You went home, obviously, I imagine, traumatized from what sounds like an incredibly upsetting incident. And then this is where things take an even worse, incredible, terrible turn.
Oh, yes. Going home traumatized, and to come back being now a subject of investigation, disciplinary action for apparently
for
misgendering a male prisoner.
So you were informed that they said they wanted you to write a statement for them?
Write a statement within 24 hours, and they wouldn't let me have my legal representative, my union, and which I requested on writing, and I was told, if you can't provide that, I'll tell you to pick up your bags and leave, and you'll be suspended. So I was forced to do this overnight. We've had no help to produce this statement.
And by the way, did they address the racist attack that happened to you? Did they provide any counselling or try and see if you were okay?
I don't think they were concerned about my feelings or how I was racially abused. They were referring to the patient as, if the patient is their first concern, which is my first concern. That's why I'm a nurse. I'm a very passionate nurse, and I love my job. For 12 years of my nursing, I've always enjoyed my job.
You've never had any complaints?
No complaints. I've had always lovely nurses,
You're
staff.
a senior nurse now.
Yes, senior nurse. I've worked my way up, and it's been by the grace of God that, I'm still with it. Many people really be, undergoing a lot of depression and anxiety. It did take a toll on me, and but I had good support from Christian Concerns and my friends and families, and my bishop, Mark Nicholson, has been so amazing.
So what happened? So you wrote this report, or you wrote in a statement what had happened to you.
Yes.
What was the trust's next move then? What did they do?
The next move was to take me through panels and to try to. They were trying to make me conform to the norm if in the case of another patient or who is maybe calling himself as a woman, would you not do this? And
compelled speech.
Yes, trying to trick me in a way that so I would just
do what they wanted.
Do what they wanted, and I just stood by my word. I said, because of my Christian faith, I can't. I'm happy to call them by that name, and that's as far as it goes. I can't refer to a man as a woman or a woman as a man. It's against my faith.
So what happened after all of that then? Once you've been through that process, what did they decide? What the fate's been?
We had sort of disciplinary at the end of it. I think yes, I was referred to the NMC and
the nurses.
Yeah, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and which now is still on the case, still ongoing. And I was given a written warning, a final written warning. Now, mind you, I've never had a warning or report. So having a final written warning, and so with my legal rep, we had an appeal, which until to date, they haven't got a date yet for the appeal for the written warning on my file.
My understanding is that you've also been moved now. So
yes.
You can't claim, your name's been taken off the system, the internal system, so you can't now work overtime, which obviously that makes a big financial difference.
Yes.
And your families.
Yes, in a sense, because when I was redeployed, I was actually working as, you know, I was demoted in a way because I was not working in the role that, you know, I was supposed to be working. Literally redeployed to a different department. And I remember, you know, the matron saying, oh, you know, you're not allowed to do extra shifts if you wanted to. You're now, from now on, you can do this extra shift. So after 5 days, I was quite, you know, of being redeployed and just doing the normal hours, and I was in tears actually. And then my daughter said, "Mommy, why don't you just send them an email?" And said, "You can't cope. You need to do your extra shifts." And I did send an email, and she's got back to me and she said, "We will contact HR and see if you can just do day shifts in where I was redeployed." It was just within the first 1 week. So then I began doing a couple of bank shifts in this ward, but they said you're not allowed to work in any other departments or even anywhere else. It was, as I felt I was being punished for my faith, I felt like I was the prisoner here, being threatened by the management, and I had nothing to say. And it was like, just go by what they say. It was difficult. I had a quite traumatic couple of months.
Yeah.
Yes.
On top of this racist abuse.
On top of the racist abuse.
From a paedophile.
Yes, plus my case being ongoing with the NMC, having to be writing reports after reports of the incident is almost overwhelming.
Have you heard of the saying, the process is the punishment?
Yes.
Where they make you write these reports, it goes on for months, sometimes years, and that's what that's how they hope that you give up.
Yes.
Of course you haven't.
No, my faith in Christ has been so amazing, and I know, and one thing I remember, and I said, Lord Jesus, I remember the scripture in Jeremiah 29:11. It says, you have good plans for you, and it's not to harm you, but to prosper you. And I said, Lord, this word must become alive in my life. With my career, you said you have good plans for me, and I've always wanted to be a nurse. And I said, Lord, if it's your will for me to be a nurse, there's no one that can take this away from me, because I worked very hard, after 3 children I returned back to school just to please my dad, because I had my kids quite very young, and I felt like I disappointed my dad who brought me from Uganda when I was young. So I made the effort to go back to college and went to university.
I know. And,
yes,
and
had the kids,
for stating biological fact now, this dream that you've worked hard towards is now threatened, and you obviously had this incredible, just horrible year, and all because somehow the feelings of a sex offender somehow trumps the racist abuse that you received. It's disgusting.
Yes, I was quite disappointed that they were siding with a sex offender, pedophile, for that matter, who had been actually luring boys, you know, pretending to be a
this the irony, of course, is this person pretended to be a young teen girl to then try and get young boys involved in that. This is, like I said, incredible story. I commend you for your bravery and your strength coming through it and moving forward. And I know you have a lot of supporters out there who will be there with you. And thank you so much for coming in and telling us your story. Ladies and gentlemen. Jennifer Millay, a spokesman for Epsom and St Helier University Hospitals NHS Trust, said these matters are still subject to ongoing internal proceedings, so it wouldn't be right for us to comment further. Next on Free Speech Nation, DJ Danny Rampling has lost multiple gigs as a result of being associated with Jordan Peterson's art conference. Is there a problem with cancel culture on the music scene? Co-founder of Together, Alan D. Miller, joins me next in a second. Thank you so much.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
After a wet and windy couple of weeks for Spain and Portugal, there's some dry weather on offer and plenty of sunshine across the eastern Mediterranean too. Still some showers affecting the far north of Spain and Portugal and some heavy downpours across parts of Italy and Croatia over the next couple of days. But across the eastern parts of the Mediterranean, parts of Turkey and Cyprus, plenty of sunshine on offer. The best of the sunshine through the rest of the week, though, definitely across the Canary Islands, and highs here likely to reach around 21 or 22.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
If you've read Spare, you'll know that Prince Harry's very open, isn't he, about his drug taking in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see if he was honest in his visa application.
Well, we're absolutely waiting for it. Yes, he admitted he took cannabis, cocaine and magic mushrooms, as we know in Spare, and also the Netflix series. He said that. There's been so much talk about it, and obviously Judge Carl Nichols originally said he refused to release any footage, saying that he basically because of Prince Harry's privacy. But as we know, Trump, border security and application of rule is one of his priorities. And I do see Harry as a pawn, really, for Trump and collateral. So everyone's waiting to see what happens. Tuesday is the day, D-Day. We don't know whether Prince Harry is quaking in his boots. But, he quit being a working royal. Well, did he get preferential treatment? We don't know. There is possible misconduct. Apparently, DHS says that actually releasing the paperwork won't shed any light onto how things work. But there are thoughts as well that he could have entered on a special visa. Now, this is an A1 visa that deals with immigration paperwork. And it's a special kind of visa for heads of states and royal people. So Prince Harry could have got through on that, but we're waiting to hear. It's D-Day tomorrow.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, Danny Rampling, a pioneering figure in the British nightlife and dance music, has faced a cancel culture backlash. In February, he was booked to DJ at Jordan Peterson's Alliance for Responsible Citizenship conference after party. I have to mention that ARC is an organisation funded by the lead investors in GB News. However, activists from Fossil Free London protested, claiming DJ Rampling was associated with far-right agitators. This led to the event's venue cancelling, and he lost multiple gigs. Despite the controversy, the DJ refuses to be silenced, calling for the preservation of free speech and open discourse. His case highlights a worrying trend in British nightlife where political views are being weaponised to silence dissent, threatening fundamental freedoms. We're joined now by co-founder of Together, Alan Miller. Alan, welcome.
Thank you.
Alan, I read you wrote a piece in Spike that covered the story, and I think what sort of came out to me most about it was you don't hear much about cancel culture within dance culture. This was kind of the first time I'd read about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be remembered that Danny Rampling was a leading pioneer for dance music culture. Everything we hear around the world or in Britain, whether you're at a cafe, in a hotel, or, you know, in a nightclub, he is one of the key instigators of that, and for 4 decades been promoting it, championing actually music that, as it happens, originated from black and gay clubs in Detroit and Chicago, but then was brought together with lots of different elements. And he's constantly, you know, like many people who were the originators of the dance music scene, has been forthright in actually helping change attitudes over the last 4 decades. So it's particularly ironic, actually, that people start throwing these claims around. And, you know, it seems as though it's unacceptable to have ideas with people that say they want diversity, with ideas that are as terrifying as liking the opponent, the head of the Conservative Party, or being at an arena where the fastest growing new political party's leader is speaking, Nigel Farage at Reform. Somehow, people that have been voted in democratically, it's beyond the pale. They're not allowed to come to London, these people are saying, and they're going to stand up against fascism and the far right in London. But the question is, Josh, you see, Danny Rampling spent a lot of his time playing all over the world, bringing people together, giving great joy to people, has his own views and his opinions. He happened to say that it was great to be in a place where free-thinking people were. That seems to be beyond the pale as well. But then there's this idea, a bit like the Chinese Cultural Revolution, that if you don't fit in to this very particular outlook, we're going to come and destroy you. We're not going to thrash out these debates. We're not going to discuss it with you. And who are Fossil Free London, right? They say they're going to stop people coming into London. Well, we saw how Extinction Rebellion were treated in Canning Town when they said they wanted to stop ordinary, everyday working people going to work, as though they could project their ideas onto them. So Fossil Free London doesn't speak for Londoners. Neither does Stand Up to Racism, who has people like Diane Abbott on their board. Fair enough, right? But what's different to having Diane Abbott as a representative than having, say, Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage? You may not like their views. Great, let's get out and debate and discuss them. But these very few activists who seek to create real damage, actually, they seem to pretend that they represent everyone. But actually, when people stand up and say, you don't represent the majority of Londoners or the majority of people in Britain, actually, you're a tiny, tiny fraternity that is scared to have a debate and discussion, that thinks everyone is on the verge of being like a kind of Nazi. But actually, who are the people that really banned things and shut them down and burnt books? That was always historically,
yeah, the right,
the far right, and so I think it's, I think what's happening now is that the public have had enough of it. I just want to say this: like, I spent many years, 30 years, putting on events around the world, pushing dance culture, 20 years in London, in Brick Lane, in an area that's very run down, bringing people together, UK Garage. I was like kind of always, it was a very kind of lot of what they now call urban music, always promoting that. And actually spent many of my younger years fighting against racism, right? So I find this particularly ironic and ridiculous that people will say these things and then others will just retweet it, or they'll feel they'll have to conform. They don't even know the story. Because actually, Josh, like people like Marshall Jefferson, really well-known DJ, American DJ, have all come out. People like Roy the Roach and others in Britain have come out and supported Danny Rampling. But you see, others are too terrified, because if you don't say certain things or take a theatrical approach and say, put your head down and say those words, because obviously everyone would say, well, I don't really like racism. Most people will say that, right? But if you ask them, but you say, well, what actually has happened? What is this far-right claim? And you have to kind of do that. And then venues are nervous about being, like, getting attention with the police and others, so they're all cautious. But like what I'm saying today, really, and what we're going to be doing much more is we're going to have some festival-type activities for freedom. And we're going to have all sorts of people, DJs, comedians, artists, farmers, drivers, coming together and actually showing how the majority of the British public are decent and they want to see and hear things, they want ideas. And how could you possibly have creativity in the arts or music without freedom of speech and expression? I mean, that's the whole point. In order to flourish, you need the creativity to be able to flow. You need freedom of speech to do that. So I think it's time we said to those guys, there's very few who think they've got the right to shut us down. We're not having it anymore. I think there's going to be some legal stuff, but that together, we're very much into getting the public to have its voices heard. And one thing we can all do, and all the viewers here can do, is make sure you tell bars and nightclubs and everyone, and music magazines like Resident Advisor and Mix Mag, who decided to put the piece out uncritically. Make sure you write to them. Make sure you have your voices heard. Make sure you tell everyone. Tell your councillors, the elections are coming up on the 1st of May. Tell your MPs that you want to have free speech, that you want to see these things go on, you want to have these events, and particularly tell clubs and bars how you feel about it.
I like the bit about telling your MP, I want to go out and take drugs while I listen to this music. But I mean, this is how it works, of course, and we've seen it across so many. I've seen it in comedy, and by the way, thank you for not booking me for this event that you're doing.
We'd love to have you, Josh.
Not at all.
You've seen it here live. We'd love to have you there.
Phew, that's one gig. But it's the fear, and that's the problem. As you say, it's a few people, a few very vocal people, and then to see bars, in this case, basically kowtow to them. But what's interesting is that the culture is moving forward. So it seems like dance culture somehow is still a little bit weirdly behind the times on this. I think a lot of people are speaking up now, are braver, and we are seeing people standing up for their ability, for the right to speak freely on this. Yet dance culture somehow seems to be 2 years, 3 years ago.
Well, I think what happens is that we say dance culture, there's all sorts of different things going on, right? So there's a multitude of different scenes and groups, but those that are involved in the publishing part of it, like who might be either doing the magazines or writing things or selling tickets or maybe being agents, very powerful positions, right, gateways, distributors of ideas, they are very much, some of them very much caught up with these ideas. The public that are going out, and many younger people, that sort of 16 to 25 age group is very different to the 25 to 35. As we've seen with young people who are voting for people like Reform and others, right, other independents, they're not going along with these ideas that that the slightly older generation were told, and we're all told you have to do the woke thing, which there's a lot of kickback against now. And frankly, right, I think that the yardstick should be, let's get it out and discuss it and debate it. If you genuinely think someone's got terrible ideas, let's have them out and let's flesh it out. Let's just assume everyone can cope with that.
Of course, that's how the far left work. They don't want to debate because they know that so many of their positions are really, they can't debate them physically because they don't make any sense. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Founder, our co-founder together, Alan Miller. I think I actually went to a couple of your nights and I'm still recovering from them. So next on Free Speech Nation, it's our social sensations. Don't go anywhere. See you in a second.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, most of us will see some rain at times, but equally some sunshine too. Low pressure is pulling away to the southeast of the UK at the moment. That's taking most of today's showers away to the southeast, allowing a little ridge of high pressure to build in from the northwest, so things should quieten down for a time at least over the next 24 hours or so. Back to tonight though, we've still got some showers for a time this evening across the southeast corner of the UK. Some of those could be heavy, even thundery for a while as well. But notice they tend to fade away as we go into the early hours of Monday. A lot of low cloud left behind, so quite murky with some hill fog in places. Whereas towards the northwest of the UK, under clearer skies, we'll see a fairly widespread frost, certainly in rural spots, with temperatures here down to -3 or -4 Celsius. As for Monday itself, then, when we start the day with some rain across the Shetland there, but elsewhere in the north, plenty of fine weather to start Monday, lots of sunshine around, but as I say, it will be quite a cold start, some frost to clear first thing. Plenty of sunshine for Northern Ireland, but once again, a fairly widespread frost to start the day. Brighter skies across parts of northwest England and western parts of Wales with some high cloud moving in here. Whereas towards the southeast, we're under that thick band of cloud there, quite a murky start with some fog to clear. And notice that across the south, though, temperatures holding well above freezing. So as we go through the rest of the day, the low cloud in the south and southeast will gradually lift and break to allow some sunshine to come through. And then for much of the UK, Monday does look quite promising, plenty of sunshine around. But notice towards the northwest that cloud and rain across the far north there, pushing its way southeastwards across northern and western Scotland into western parts of Northern Ireland too. Temperatures generally around average, if not just above, in the low, locally mid-teens Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, it's the turn of the south of the UK to see some outbreaks of rain, whereas towards the north of the UK, brighter skies, just 1 or 2 showers, and all the while those temperatures still holding up fairly well in the range low to mid-teens. We'll see further bands of rain moving their way southeastwards across the UK during the rest of the week, weakening all the while though, and all the time those temperatures stay around or just above average.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we take a look at what's been going viral this week on social media. First up is this video.
They need to start doing like Monday Night Football intros for every female sport.
Oh,
so you can
I like
tell.
that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm Mary. I went to UCLA. Frank. Purdue.
Oh yeah, he's
Oh, that's the one there. No wonder he's got 48 points in the first half.
yeah, he's like Rick, Women's College of Design.
So what this is, Cresta, is some comedians taking the mickey out of biological men in women's sports. Isn't that such a strange thing?
It will never catch on. I'll tell you what is strange. Aideen and I were talking about this earlier, and the first guy, what's his name? Sorry, it's gone. Shane Gillis.
Yes.
Sure, he doesn't know who I am. Apparently, he presented SNL recently, so he's mainstream. He's going to be in trouble for this.
No, I don't think he is going to be in trouble for this. I think that's the point. I think that it's changed in America, but I don't know if it's changed here so far, because this is what when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is really funny. And then I got upset because I was like, comedians in this country, we failed. Like, this stuff has been going on for years. And where are our mainstream comics? Apart, Ricky Gervais has talked about this in the past, but so few have actually taken a stand and taken the mickey out of it. This is our job, to take the mickey out of this ridiculousness. And they haven't, because they're cowards. And we are meant to be brave. That's how I thought so anyway.
I'm a coward.
Here's your time to redeem yourself. All right, let's watch the next video.
The Ilaria show.
No, I think we're gonna see. You know, we're gonna see how it feels to have it be out there.
It's gonna be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God! When I'm talking, you're not talking.
Sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why. Yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No, no. I mean, I think this is a really raw show, and it's very real, and we took a lot of chances, and you know, I think that it's
This this is traumatising watching.
When I'm
this.
talking, you're not talking, Josh. I'm going to adopt that.
That's
very
really
useful for headliners.
Yes, Lewis.
He looks so cross. This is like a microcosm of feminism. This is what's happening in the world. We've gone, zip it, me, and now they're just walking away.
That's what he did. He was just. That's why I love. My favourite bit is him walking in the background, going, "Someone else, please pay attention to me."
Because it could have been part of their cheeky banter, and maybe they say this to each other. And then I know both of them are full of Botox, so neither of them could look really that sad.
Well, thank you very much to my panel, Aideen McQueen and Cressida Wetton, and of course to all of my brilliant guests this evening. And if you want to join us live in the studio, be part of this wonderful audience, you can. Please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That is next. Don't forget headliners every night at 11 p.m. That is the late night paper preview show. We're going to talk about the news with comedians. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. Goodbye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, most of us will see some rain at times, but equally some sunshine too. Low pressure is pulling away to the southeast of the UK at the moment. That's taking most of today's showers away to the southeast, allowing a little ridge of high pressure to build in from the northwest, so things should quieten down for a time at least over the next 24 hours or so. Back to tonight though, we've still got some showers for a time this evening across the southeast corner of the UK. Some of those could be heavy, even thundery for a while as well. But notice they tend to fade away as we go into the early hours of Monday. A lot of low cloud left behind, so quite murky with some hill fog in places. Whereas towards the northwest of the UK, under clearer skies, we'll see a fairly widespread frost, certainly in rural spots, with temperatures here down to -3 or -4 Celsius. As for Monday itself, then, we start the day with some rain across Shetland there, but elsewhere in the north, plenty of fine weather to start Monday, lots of sunshine around, but as I say, it will be quite a cold start, some frost to clear first thing. Plenty of sunshine for Northern Ireland, but once again, a fairly widespread frost to start the day. Brighter skies across parts of northwest England and western parts of Wales with some high cloud moving in here. Whereas towards the southeast, we're under that thick band of cloud there, quite a murky start with some fog to clear. And notice that across the south, though, temperatures holding well above freezing. So as we go through the rest of the day, the low cloud in the south and southeast will gradually lift and break to allow some sunshine to come through. And then for much of the UK, Monday does look quite promising, plenty of sunshine around. But notice towards the northwest that cloud and rain across the far north there, pushing its way southeastwards across northern and western Scotland into western parts of Northern Ireland too. Temperatures generally around average, if not just above, in the low, locally mid-teens Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, it's the turn of the south of the UK to see some outbreaks of rain, whereas towards the north of the UK, brighter skies, just 1 or 2 showers, and all the while those temperatures still holding up fairly well in the range low to mid-teens. We'll see further bands of rain moving their way southeastwards across the UK during the rest of the week, weakening all the while though, and all the time those temperatures stay around or just above average.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight.
What we've already seen in these last few months of the Labour government is a sustained increase in living standards.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think